Welcome to the NAPE YouTube site. Now, Mulberry Bush supports families, teachers and schools in helping to understand how to support traumatised children. So we are joined today by ldennis. Now, Laura is the Education Outreach Lead for Mulberry Bush and shares with us in detail the work that Mulberry Bush does in the educational community. She then takes us onto the Mulberry Bush website to explain further the outreach work that it does so well. Laura, welcome to the NAPE YouTube site. Thank you very much for joining us today.
Thank you, Mike. It's lovely to be here.
Yeah, well, here being cyberspace, of course.
No.
So, Laura, what is your role at the Mulberry Bush? Do I call it a school or do I just call it the Mulberry Bush?
That's a good question. I'd probably go along the lines of just calling it the Mulberry Bush.
Yes.
And I can talk a bit more about that in a moment, actually.
Sure.
So my role is I am the Education Outreach Lead at the Mulberry Bush, which essentially means that I lead an outreach team and we go out into schools, lots of mainstream schools, but also specialist schools, primary and secondary, and we support the upskilling of staff within those schools.
Yeah.
So when I talk about upskilling, we specialise in working with children with social, emotional, mental health needs who display quite often challenging behaviours. And so therefore what we do is we really support the staff to understand and begin to unpick and think about the unconscious and conscious communication that children are giving to us. So we think also a lot about the emotions that are sort of projected from the children and support staff well-being, really.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense to me. I mean, what is your sort of geographical extent from where you are in Oxfordshire?
So we haven't really got any parameters which keep us just boundary to Oxfordshire. We are actually starting to deliver quite a lot of training in various counties.
Yeah.
We do a lot of training in Dorset, actually. So we support some of the children's homes down there. So we're not just supporting educational settings, but also children's homes and social service sort of systems. We've also just began working with Oasis Restore, which is a youth justice organisation who are creating the UK's first secure school. So we're working very closely with them to upskill all of the staff who they will be employing to ensure that they are embedding a therapeutic mannerism into this secure school. And for those who aren't aware, this would have been previously known as sort of a youth prison.
Yes.
So it's now going to the secure school setting. So we're supporting that, the creation of that in Kent.
Yeah. And are these sort of sessions you have with schools, are they, do you use technology or is it face-to-face? How does it work?
So we use a bit of both. At times we will go and do some face-to-face training or face-to-face support. Other times, depending on distance again, and preference as well, we will meet with people online.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
To deliver training or deliver support. So it's very much sort of ad hoc, case by case.
Yeah, absolutely. It's what you're actually saying. It's tailor-made to that school and that community and that group of kids within that school, or whether it's the whole school. So let's think about your motivation now. What attracted you to this sort of workplace?
So my experience is that I started I did my BA honours in primary education at Brookes, Oxford Brookes. And that was where it all started, really. I always knew I wanted to be a teacher. And from finishing my degree, I went into primary education, teaching in an inner city Oxford school. And taught Key Stage 1 for a few years, with key passion for leadership, and I've been very motivated to get into leadership posts. So I came out of mainstream and moved across to specialist, and actually I came and taught at the Mulberry Bush for 4.5 years following my time in mainstream. And learned an awful lot here. The children that we support are aged between 5 and 13. So I ended up teaching children who were obviously a lot older than the Key Stage 1 children I'd had the experience of in mainstream school. And then I left and went back into mainstream, but I went to secondary this time, and I went to be an assistant head teacher of a secondary school, and ended up being the Senko and sort of lead for inclusion in the secondary.
Yeah.
So in terms of what has ended me up back in this role, really, is that I, have been really passionate about supporting others and upskilling others. I recognise that my experiences that I've been lucky enough to have really supported me to get through the day-to-day life of being a teacher within the classroom, but also being a leader within a school. And so I'm now in the fortunate position in this role of being able to support and upskill others with some of the skills that I've learned along the way, which also enables me to support the well-being. And I think there were times when I worked in mainstream when I found my well-being really crushed a little bit. The work was very demanding.
Yes.
And I didn't necessarily always feel supported by the people I worked with. And so what I'm now able to offer is I'm able to offer a lot of support to mainstream colleagues and be that listening ear or that person to bounce ideas off of, and really get into the nitty-gritty of what emotions we pick up from the day-to-day work and think about the impact of the work on us as human beings and what we take home.
Yeah. So in a nutshell, what is Mulberry Bush? What does it seek to do?
So we are an organisation that has been around for over 75 years. So we began in 1948, and we were founded by a lady called Barbara Drysdale, who was a psychologist, and she supported children who had been orphaned and from the war, and also was displaying challenging behaviours due to the traumas they'd experienced.
Yeah.
So she created this residential children's home, which she then cooperated into the education side of things as well. So what's happened is over these last, 75 years, we've evolved the setting into a multi-agency therapeutic community, essentially. So on our site, we have a school with a head teacher and 4 teaching classes. But we also have 5 residential children's homes on site as well. So the children live on site either 38 weeks to 50 or 52 weeks a year, depending on their circumstances outside of the Mulberry Bush. And then they go to school every day, as you would, term time only, they go to school. And then in the holidays, they will go and do camping. And we try and make it as family-like as possible for the children who remain on site.
Yeah.
So the majority of the children who are here have got significant social, emotional, mental health needs and have experienced really significant early life trauma, which means that they need a lot of assistance to manage the day-to-day life and get through situations which rise throughout everyone's lives.
Yeah.
So we have got a department of therapists, we've got a department of the outreach team, we've got a research department, we've got a consultancy department, and we all work very, very closely together to support the organisation to continue to run and support these children from across the United Kingdom. So they're not just Oxfordshire children, they come from across the UK.
Fantastic. Now, I think our viewers actually may understand even more about Mulberry Bush if we look at the website. So, Laura, could you please share the website with us, please?
Yes, no problem. So this is the homepage of our website. I will just very briefly take you sort of through the tabs that we've got. So we've obviously got the homepage, which also gives you an overview about what the Mulberry Bush is. We've then got a tab which tells you about the school provision and what that looks like, sort of sharing the leadership team, our values, Ofsted reports, policies, procedures. We've then got our research tab, which I'm going to go into a little bit further in a second. Our outreach tab, which really sort of promotes and talks about the work that we're able to do in terms of supporting the outside world, outside of the Mulberry Bush. So that's supporting settings who work with children. We've got a tab called MB3, which is also known as the Mulberry Bush Third Space. And this is a space that we have got in Toddington, Gloucestershire, which is available to rent out, but also we deliver a lot of our training there. It also holds our archive, which has all of our information from the past sort of 75 years, but we also hold other organisations' archives there as well. So it's a little bit like a mini museum. We've then got a consulting tab, so it talks about the consulting work that we do, again, with sort of wider organisations. And then there's obviously the tab for supporting us if you're wishing to donate or fundraise for us, because we are a non-for-profit charity. So just to go a little bit further into our research.
Please.
So we strongly believe that research is a really core element of education and learning. And so a lot of what we do, we try to collect as much research as possible, data as possible, and then create research papers on. So Dr. Karen Onions is our head of research at the Mulberry Bush. And if we just scroll down a bit further, you can have a look at the projects that we're currently focusing at the moment on. And I will draw your attention to the Nurturing Schools project, because I think that would be quite a key one for the audience to be knowing about. And that's a project which has been going over the past few years. We've been working with Oxfordshire schools to embed nurture practices into the whole school environment. Yeah. So we run nurture groups within those. Well, we don't run. We train the staff to run nurture groups within those settings. And think about really embedding the 6 principles of nurture, which then focuses on building the self-esteem and well-being of the children, who are quite often vulnerable children or children that display social, emotional, mental health needs, whilst also thinking about the well-being of staff and really making a cultural difference on the whole school. I'll just pop over to the completed research as well, just to draw your attention to the Beacon pilot project learning evaluation, because that's worth also just mentioning that we worked on a whole school impact project with 5 schools across Warwickshire, really thinking about the whole school well-being and response to social, emotional, mental health. That was working really, really closely with the homeschooling workers and the safeguarding leads across the school to support the families and parents of children who are very vulnerable and who are struggling with self-esteem and their well-being.
Good. Wow.
So there's lots on the website for people to explore.
I can certainly see that. Do you provide resources for schools directly from the website at all, in any way, shape or form?
So in terms of the support that we can offer, is that what you mean?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. So the support can be very much, be accessed via the outreach page. So just clicking on the outreach tab. And Dr. Dave Roberts is the head of the outreach team. And we, on this page, will be able to explore what we can do and offer to schools, whilst also quite easily contacting us via completing the referral form, giving us a little bit more information. Then we'll give you a call back or an email to arrange a meeting to discuss what the needs are.
Wow, that's most impressive. Yes. So it could be a class teacher who feels that a child in his or her class needs additional support, as well as the teacher themselves. So that's really, really, really interesting. And then you just click on the referral form there.
That's it, yes. So you just click through. And sometimes the inquiries we get are just around one child and a child who's finding schools particularly challenging. So we do have contacts from teachers, from Senkos, sometimes head teachers, and just wanting to talk through what support's currently in place for the child that the school's already offering, and also unpick maybe what other bits and pieces they can be embedding to support that child even better. Yeah.
That makes a lot of sense to me. Do you get many that way?
We do get quite a lot of referrals that way. I think people quite often will pick up the phone to us and say, there's a child at the point of exclusion. We don't want to go down the exclusion route, but we could really do with some support of think about how to avoid the exclusions.
Yes.
We very much believe that all behaviour is a form of communication. And therefore we think very much about the unconscious communication that's happening through all behaviours. So quite often, sometimes what will happen is we will offer to come out and observe a child, and we will observe for a couple of hours, the child just going about their usual daily routines. And then we'll come back and we will write up the observation in a therapeutic and psychodynamic manner. And by psychodynamic, what I'm talking about is we very much think about what is being displayed in those behaviours. So we will be recognising things that necessarily the teacher and teaching assistants might not, because they're really in the thick of it in the classroom. You've got 30 children in front of you.
And other children. Yes, exactly.
Yes. So we will be really unpicking all of the little movements, twitches, nods, everything that child is doing. And then what we would do is we would send that observation off to the school to read through. And we would follow this up by coming out to do a reflective forum a couple of weeks later with all of the adults that work around that child. So that's quite often the teacher, the TA, the Senko, some of the leadership team, other TAs as well. And we sit down and we think about the impact of working alongside this child. So what's the impact on us? How are we left feeling after working with the child?
Yes.
And we will then also work through a document called the 6 stages of crisis. So we will break down as a group together the
Yeah.
work and thinking about, right, what are the trigger points here? What did we recognize from the observation? What do we also know from our own experiences of working with this child? What are the key triggers? How does this leave adults feeling when the behavior is increasing and becoming more challenging? And what is the script that we're going to use to help make sure there's a consistent approach to support this child to regulate in the future? So we will work through that within the forum as well. So that's quite a popular ask.
It is, and it seems to me then that would inform any ECHP or any strategies that are written down for that particular child. That's
Yeah,
absolutely marvelous.
absolutely.
And is there sort of a sort of comeback? Do you get feedback about how it's going, or whether it's worked for that child? How does
Yeah,
that
so
work?
we try to keep up with in terms of evaluation. So we do keep in contact with all
Mm.
schools that we work with.
Yes.
Even if it's just a sort of drop an email, how is child X getting
Yeah.
on,
Yeah.
further down the line, how are things? Would it be
Precisely.
helpful to touch base? So we do try and keep track that way.
Yes.
And we quite often hear how helpful these sessions have been in terms of the staff being really put in touch with what is going on in the wider picture for the child's life.
Mm.
Because I think it's very easy for us to sometimes get very lost in the moment when we're seeing these
True.
behaviours, which are very challenging, to forget about the wider impacts of why that might be.
Yes, 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 of course. Well, that's all very good. I mean, I need to ask you also about self-care and well-being, and to some extent, you have brought that to the fore with everything that you do in terms of working with the staff, working with the children. Is there anything else you needed to add on, say, self-care and well-being?
So I've touched slightly on it that
Yes.
we've got 3 core principles here at the Mulberry Bush. So that's reflective practice, collaboration, and psychodynamic thinking. So
Yeah.
obviously I've talked a little bit about the psychodynamics and thinking about what behaviour tells us. I've talked a bit about the collaboration we do with the outside world and the schools that we support. But reflective practice is really, really also at the heart of what we do and believe in. So
Yes.
when we do reflective practice here, everyone at the Mulberry Bush, whether you are the admin part of the admin team, or whether you're a housekeeper, the head teacher, the outreach team, everyone receives one-to-one supervision across the organisation. And when
Yes.
I say supervision, what that basically looks like is it's a protected space with your line manager, and you have a one-to-one meeting every few months, depending on what role you're in. And you have an opportunity to, again, talk and reflect about the impact of the work. So you will talk about how you're left feeling at the end of the day, essentially. So what things are you carrying home with you?
Yeah.
Are there particular areas of the work that you need support with? Are there not? What things are going really well? So it's really important to recognize all the things that we're doing really well as well. But it's just
Mm.
that real space, to think and reflect on the emotions and the impact of the work. So everyone receives that at the Mulberry Bush. And one of our offerings is we offer supervision. So from the outreach team, we offer supervision to staff in mainstream schools
Yeah.
to give them that space and that opportunity to offload some of the emotion and feelings they are left feeling from working day to day in schools.
It's very stressful, isn't it?
It's
You know,
very, very
they
hard
go
work.
with them, they can't go to sleep, and they worry and worry about it because we're all human beings. So to be able to, as you say, offload it and try and understand how to deal with that particular situation, how to work with those children in a positive way, must, of course, be a big bonus, for their mental health and the child's mental health. So that sounds very, very positive to me indeed. Now, tell me, is there anything else you wanted to add about the Mulberry Bush?
I don't think there is. I think I've probably covered the majority of it, but it'd be lovely. We're always at the end of an email or the end of a phone. If anyone does feel they need to pick up the phone and just offload or share or have any sort of questions around what we do, then please do pick up the phone or email us. We'd be very happy to come back to you.
Yes, I'll put the link at the bottom of the screen there so people can see it. And if you look at the description, it will also be there, as well as, of course, the website itself and associated resources. So, Laura, thank you very much indeed. It's been absolutely fascinating. And clearly your team is doing a sterling job, not only in Oxfordshire, but across the country, which is amazing. And we look forward to the results of all the research that's being carried on. So thanks a lot for that. So can I say goodbye?
That's okay.
Cheers. Thank you.
Thanks, Mike. Thank you.